Let's get a little bit more on the move in oil and bring in Brian Sullivan, who's at a big oil and gas conference in Washington. Brian, great to have you on a day like today where we're seeing WTI and Brent catch a bid mid-session. What's the talk there, and why do are you hearing anything about this pressuring of allies to dial back Iranian oil purchases to zero?
We are hearing that as well. In fact, just up this escalator to my right here is Secretary Perry. Energy Secretary Rick Perry is literally up that. We had a few moments with him off camera earlier today. We also got some comments from the Russian oil minister, Alexander Novak, as well. They are literally all in a room with a number of other member countries and companies. ConocoPhillips, the CEO, Ryan Lance, is in that room as well. Representatives from Chevron and ExxonMobil. It's a very interesting move in the price of crude oil, and I'll tell you why. Because we got headlines earlier today that the Saudis are going to raise their production to a record 10.8 million barrels. Russia, as part of the OPEC deal, is going to raise its production by about 200,000 barrels as well. We confirmed that with Nowak about a half an hour ago to our camera. In fact, we'll get those comments out if we can, although they are translated. So you've got a lot of these big producers saying they're going to increase their production. That's going to add more oil to the market. Now we've got these Iran headlines, which completely turn things around. I was listening to your conversation with Joe and John and some others, and I just want to point something out about the U.S. side of the story, Melissa, which I think is important. Is that when we were in OPEC yesterday, or last week, we talked to Scott Sheffield. He is the chairman of PXD, Pioneer Natural, that Joe just recommended. Just be careful about peak production in the Permian, guys, because there's a lot of concern out there that if we lose barrels elsewhere, oh, don't worry, Texas will pick it up. I'm not so sure about that because we've heard a lot about pipeline constraints, truck driver constraints, trucking. We can pump more oil. We just don't have a way to get it to market right now. So Sheffield said that he thought for now the Permian may have been peaked out. Either way, really interesting headlines. Obviously, we're going to try to get some comments from Secretary Perry once he comes out of that meeting upstairs here at the World Gas Conference in D.C.
Jim's got a question for you, Brian.
Hey, Brian, good analysis there. I'm just curious if you talked about the pipeline pressure coming out of the Permian. Are you hearing anything that maybe that's why the rig count hasn't risen as much over the last year as at least I would have expected to where oil prices are? I'm really perplexed by the flat rig curve here.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, Jim. Listen, no people, no rig count jump. I mean, we saw rig counts double over the past year, and then every week now it's kind of gone down, actually, or maybe stayed flat. You know why? If you don't have people, if you don't have the services companies, you have to remember that when oil bottomed out a couple of years ago, literally hundreds of little service companies, the men and women who actually go and put frac sand down or build stuff or tear it down, they went out of business, guys. And all you hear from the Permian is that we've got the oil. Maybe we have the pipelines, although we could use more. We don't have the people, and we don't have the smaller services companies. They simply don't exist, and there's no bank financing to get them going. If you're, 10 guys that want to go start your own oil services company, currently you work for Schlumberger or whatever, you want to go off on your own, the American dream, you probably can't do it because you can't get the capital or the bank loan right now because the banks were so burned by the last oil downturn. So just be careful about saying we'll easily replace barrels lost from Iran or whatever. Here's the question, though, as we go to, I got to go back, I know, which is this. We can push our allies to not buy Iranian oil. But with all the trade stuff going on with China, are we going to really go to China, the biggest buyer of Iranian oil, and say, hey, China, don't buy Iranian oil? What do you think China's going to say right now, given all the trade rhetoric? There's probably a few things I can't say on camera. That would be their response.
Because it would be in Chinese. That's why, right, Brian?
My Chinese cursing game is low.
Yeah,
I will say
mine
that.
Too.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.